It's time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online for all your website needs at sonicwebstudios.com. The Mike Wagner Show brings you interesting people doing interesting things all across the globe. Now, let's get started on the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking a budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support at sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Evan Fine of the Senior Reserve Group. When you start thinking about retirement, who are you going to call about Medicare? Why call the best? Evan Fine of Senior Reserve Group for all your health insurance needs. Evan can be reached at 1-800-650-9357. That's 1-800-650-9357. Or email to evanfine@seniorreservegroup.com. Evan is licensed in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Delaware, South Carolina, and Florida. And we're here with a very wonderful person here who's coming from Texas. She's been a law enforcement field training officer, also served in the United States Marine Corps. She's a background investigator, author, and host of 2 radio shows, and also appearing on the Liberty Beacon TV network, or TLBTV.com. And she's also, authored a couple of books, and she's also the head of Vote. We'll tell you more about that. But without further ado, deep in the heart of Texas, I would love to sing that intro, except I probably drive a lot of people away, and people putting guns like, shut up and talk. Ladies and gentlemen, the Pride, Texas, Rebecca Mahan. Rebecca, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Mike, for having me.
You're welcome. And you've been a law enforcement field training officer for a number of years. You've also served in the United States Marine Corps. You're a background investigator. You're also author and radio and TV host, and you head up the Liberty Beacon TV network. You're also the head of Vote, which is Victims Overcoming Traumatic Events, and you're also into many ventures. But before we get to all that, tell us how you got started in your career.
Well, I'm retired now, and I knew when I was very, very young that that's what I wanted to do, is be a police officer. And so I kind of went venturing out, and what really I think I kind of played in the neighborhood is when I was very young. But when I was probably about, 9 or 10, something like that, I went to the local substation, the Sheriff's Department substation, and the deputy at the desk gave me a little sticker to wear, and I would patrol the shopping center parking lot for handicapped lack of handicapped placards. They were parking in stalls that shouldn't have been parked there. And I would go to the little payphone and call and say, hey, there's a vehicle that's parked in this spot that doesn't have a handicap placard. And he would pacify me and say we were going to send a unit out. And so I would do this every day and take my little sticker and do that. And then later on, I found out that they had a Police Explorer program, and you had to be 14 years old to be a Police Explorer. And if you wanted to be an Explorer with the Sheriff's Department, you had to be 16. So at 13 and a half or 13, I was calling saying, hey, how do I get in this program? And they said, well, you have to be 13 and a half, and we'll let you go to the academy, the Police Explorer Academy. And so I basically war dialed them until I was able to get into the Police Explorer Academy. And so I did that at 13 and a half, and then I was a Police Explorer with San Gabriel Police Department at the time of 13 and a half, 14 years old, and I was out in a uniform, on patrol, directing traffic. I saw my first dead body at that time.
Ooh.
And so that was really kind of the beginning of my law enforcement career officially. And then teenage life happened. I kind of got away from it after high school. I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And then I went into sales. Well, I did loss prevention for a while, and then I went into sales. And later on, I went and put myself through the police academy, and there's just kind of more that happened. But I became a police officer, a deputy sheriff first, then a police officer. But I had some injuries in the Marine Corps, and while I didn't go overseas, those injuries ended up creating a problem for me in conjunction with the equipment that I was wearing while I was a police officer, and it ended up costing me my career. So that's kind of my story.
Okay.
With that.
All right. And was this involved any PTSD involved or anything?
There was a lot of psychological issues that I think every officer, including myself, has to face when you see different situations that involve trauma.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So they don't go away. They're things that you have to address, and they can be PTSD issues. The new term that law enforcement would like to, that I saw recently, they want to call it PTSI now.
Oh.
Because they don't want to label it as a disorder, because it's not a disorder, it's an injury to your brain versus a disorder that kind of was already with you. So in my opinion, I kind of like that because it will help relieve the stigma of an officer having a disorder. Mm-hmm. And them actually getting assistance for that.
That is something, too, that you're creating something instead of PTSD and PTSI. And, of course, there's a procedure as well, too. Like, say, if you end up, like, say, there's, like, you know, like say you get in a shootout or anything like that, and I think if there's a death involved and they say they've been placed on administrative leave, so just explain that process about administrative leave until the investigation is complete. We hear on the news all the time.
Well, what happens is if there's an officer-involved shooting, an investigation has to be instituted because our judicial system has to be fair. And it has to be fair across the board to anybody, whether they're a civilian or an officer. And so, and what's really interesting is an officer is under more scrutiny because they're held to a higher standard. Mm-hmm. So what happens is there is an investigation that is done, and they, under administrative leave, they cannot perform any duties. Uh-huh. And so they're still getting paid because they're still in the capacity as an officer. However, they have to be either exonerated or found guilty of that particular, what if it's whatever instance it is, it has to be determined whether it was criminal or not. Okay. And if they were found guilty of any type of wrongdoing, and if they were, then other actions would be taken. And so there's a term called IA, which is internal investigation. Every officer kind of fears that. You never want to be the subject of an IA. Mm-hmm. But we all know that we face that on a number of different calls that we go on, because a situation exists where you might be the subject of that. What if you have to defend yourself, or you have to defend the life of someone else? Uh-huh.
And of course, I I was just going to ask, how many times have you been involved in this situation, and others have been involved as well too? And what is the most dramatic you've ever been involved in when it comes to police work? Like, say, if it's a shootout or crime scene or anything like that, or potential arrest.
Oh, my history with crime scenes is pretty significant. When I was a deputy sheriff, we were also deputy coroners. And for some reason, I got a large amount of calls for service. And so I ended up seeing a lot of things that the average person doesn't see.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was never involved in any type of shootings. And I was very fortunate of that. But the deaths that I did see were pretty significant. And there was one in particular that really struck me kind of hard. And it took me a long time to really work through it. And the biggest benefit to help me work through it was talk. And what I mean is that by sharing the incident, later on I became a police officer at a college, and when I would go to classes to talk about my law enforcement career, and people would ask me, well, what's the worst thing you've ever seen, or can you tell me about an incident, I would share that story. And by sharing the story, it really helped me. And in a nutshell, it was just a week or so before Christmas, a 19-year-old man was doing circles by popping his motorcycle up on the back wheel and doing burnout circles. He ended up losing control, and another vehicle ended up hitting him and dragging him. And his family, a couple members of his family saw him at this time, and I had to go handle the scene. I couldn't let them near the scene at the time. I had to go with the body to the mortuary. I had to take all the jewelry off, clean it. The mortician actually removed the pieces, but I had to go back and have it cleaned and take it back to the family members and also give formal notification. And so that was pretty difficult. One of the things that I did, and I think it kind of surprised my superiors, is that I had went to my sergeant after Christmas and I said, do you mind if I go to that family on my personal time and talk to them? And I did. Mm-hmm. They approved that. And so that was a situation that was pretty interesting and traumatic. Mm-hmm. But I've been on a number of crime scenes in my career, and there's things that nobody should ever have to see, and no people should ever have to even go through.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But it's part of life, and without my faith, I think it would be it would have been a lot more difficult for me than it has been.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it sounds like you've been through a lot, and we'll get to more on that. We'll be talking about you're a host of Vote, and also you also have another group that you lead too, as long as a couple other ventures. Listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com. Powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking a budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@SonicWebStudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Evan Fine of the Senior Reserve Group. When you start a business or own a business for a while, Who do you call for sole proprietorship insurance? Why not call the expert, Evan Fine of Senior Reserve Group, for all your health insurance needs. Evan can be reached at 1-800-650-9357. That's 1-800.